Welcome back to the Modern Mastery Podcast, where we discuss the intersections of mind, body, spirit, and business with individuals on the path of mastery. Today, I have Dickie Bush, who is an online writer and the creator of Ship 30 for 30, a cohort-based writing course that has taken the Twitter community by storm. On this episode, Dickie and I discussed how holistic health and hybrid athleticism affect creative work, why writing is a necessity for everyone, and how you can build digital leverage to thrive in the modern world. If you are a growth-minded individual that has skills, interests, or passions, have tried to turn them into a source of income but struggle to make it sustainable and predictable, consider joining Modern Mastery HQ, where you can copy and paste our hundreds of processes, strategies, and systems into your one-person business while working 4 hours or less per day. We've packaged up the information from myself, a marketing consultant, and Joey, a performance consultant, into proven processes for starting and growing your business as a coach, freelancer, digital product creator, content creator, or online educator while becoming a laser-focused machine. We offer a seemingly outrageous $50,000 guarantee because we are that confident in our teachings. If you want to build a one-person business, design your perfect lifestyle, and live like you are supposed to, go to join.modernmastery.co/podcast to get your first month for $5. Or if you want to skip all of the do-it-yourself stuff and join an intensive 6-month program that guarantees business and personal success, we also have the Mastery Program. You can apply for the next cohort at join.modernmastery.co/program. Links to both of those will be in the show notes. And last but not least, I have a few favors to ask that cost a whopping $0. So if you enjoyed this podcast, subscribe or follow. It's one button click away, and it helps support the growth of this podcast. 2, leave a rating letting us know what you thought. 3, you can tag us at Modern Mastery on Twitter or at Modern Mastery HQ on Instagram with a link to this episode and some kind words, or just some kind words. It always helps. And if you do all 3, send us a DM and we have something special for you in return. So without further ado, let's dive right into this episode of the Modern Mastery Podcast. Boom. Dickie motherfucking Bush. How are you, dude?
What's going on, dude? Pumped to be here. I think I love what you're doing with the podcast. Been listening to a bunch of the episodes, so appreciate you having me on. It's going to be good.
Hell yeah. I'm excited. I mean, it's kind of weird how we got here, right? Because I don't even know how this all happened, but you DM'd me on Twitter, and then we started talking about fitness, and you made me buy a Whoop, which I love, by the way. And there's a whole story behind that. But now we're just talking fitness, like outside of Twitter and even content now. So I'm excited to dive into all of this. But to start off, I'm sure you know the question that's coming. Maybe you've had time to think about it. But what is Dickie Bush's life philosophy in one sentence?
My life philosophy is to be the healthiest, wealthiest, and happiest I've ever been every single day. And I say it very intentionally, where I strive to be the healthiest, wealthiest, and happiest I've ever been every day, because I'm not going to be every single day, but I'm going to strive to be. Not every single day I'm going to feel the best. Not every single day I'm going to be as happy as I've ever been. But the beauty of this whole thing is striving to be that every day. And it's right in my Twitter bio. I tell it to everyone. And so I didn't have to prepare, because I think about it all the time.
Hell yeah, dude. I've said this multiple times. I keep reiterating it, but a lot of everyone's life philosophy is based around growth. But the difference here with yours is that you repeat it to yourself every single day. How do you repeat it to yourself every single day?
I think it's more, I read it in the morning as I'm journaling and writing and thinking about things. I have it just across a bunch of different, it's all over my room, like whatever. But it's in my Twitter bio. Like it's just finding ways to remember what it is why you're doing anything, really. And so for me, I can always point to that is this making me healthier, wealthier, happier? Yes. Okay, let's keep going. Let's find a way to do it more sustainably, whatever.
Hmm. And when did that start? Like, because I'm writing quite literally right now in the book a part called character selection. So it's hard to explain without the nuance of the other parts, but it's pretty much the mindset reprogramming and like conscious conditioning and repetition of something positive internally as opposed to something negative coming from the external, resulting in the negative conditioning that a lot of people hold. So is that your intention behind it, is to kind of just program yourself into success and it becoming just a natural thing?
Yeah, 100%. It really started with I've been journaling every morning for about 4 years now, and that has just become a keystone habit with every single thing I do. And from there, it said, okay, what can I stack on top of that? And it was I have a document called a personal ethos where I put my values, things I think about, who I want to become, that kind of thing. And every morning as I'm journaling, I'll kind of flip through that. I don't do it as religiously as I did at the very beginning, but just having a place where everything, someone could look at that and say, that's how Dickie sees the world, right? That's why he does the things he's doing, the way he operates, all that. It's kind of all right there.
Nice. So what sparked this? Because I feel like for everyone, it starts at a specific time.
What sparked it? I've really been on this path, and we talked about this a little bit before. So I guess you can back up to I played football in college. I grew up a, athletic kid, but always just bigger, and ended up playing football and offensive line. And what's fun about that is I was paid more, not paid, this was pre NIL, so there was no payment involved, but I was basically paid to be as big and as strong as possible, which meant I was getting paid to eat and lift weights and hit people for a living for 8 years in high school and college. And at the end of my senior year, I kind of looked around, and once you finish playing football, especially as an offensive lineman, it's not like other sports where you can kind of take your athletic prowess and it's just going to, transfer over to, pick up sports or whatever. I said I was either going one or two ways. I weighed 280 pounds. I was either going to 180 or 380, right? If I was going to continue to do things the way I did, but without all the exercise of football, like, eating whatever I was, all that, I was going to be 380 pounds. Or I had to kind of change every single thing I did. And the way I say it is I had to basically rewrite my life's operating system, which was for 20 something years, the goal was be as big and as strong as possible. And then overnight, it's you have to get healthier, and otherwise you just can't operate as a 280-pound person in the real world. It's very difficult, not going to be a good thing long term. So that really sent me down the rabbit hole of finding ways to build new habits, right? I basically had to do things completely over. And it just led me down kind of the Tim Ferriss route, the James Clear, all of that, Stoic philosophy, all of this basically just self-improvement journey all started kind of as I was wrapping up college.
Yeah. The thing that I really noticed there is the curiosity, because I think that's what's missing in a lot of people's ventures to do better. Like, everyone wants to be better, right? I don't think it hasn't crossed someone's mind to not improve in some area of their life, but the difference there is questioning what could be, right? That's what I always think about, is like curiosity and questioning go hand in hand. So without questioning, you're not going to be diving into these things, because it's you question, okay, what's going to happen if I end up at 380? Not looking too bright. What's going to happen if I end up at 180? Oh, that looks amazing. What's next? That's the question. Is like, what's next? What do I do next? Okay, I need to figure out how to get to 180. I need to figure out the what, how, and why, right? I forget if that's like called the golden framework or the golden circle or something by Simon Sinek. It's the what, how, and the why. So the what is get to 180. The why, pretty obvious, the personal emotion behind it by visualizing that. And then the how is how you're going to get there. So then with the modern technology and the beauty of YouTube and social media and books, you dive into it, you start learning. And in terms of diet and exercise, what did you land on first? Like, what was your first iteration of that?
The first iteration was pretty simple. So the first 40-ish kind of came off pretty naturally because you could tell that I was far above my natural weight. Just I
Mm.
struggled to keep up at that weight. I was eating so much, and it was at times like, wow. It's looking back on it, I'll always regret not soaking that time in a little bit more. That I could eat 12 chicken parms, and like that was my job. Uh,
Yeah.
but the very easy first one was just keto, low carb. It was so natural to me because I kind of looked around, and I think anyone at the very beginning of a big weight loss journey, keto is the easiest one because you get to eat bacon cheeseburgers without a bun and lose weight. And I was like, this is a diet. Like all I gotta do is take this bun off, and I can do pretty much everything else I was doing, and that worked for a long time. Uh, it doesn't work all the way down, but at the very beginning, yeah, it was that, and I continued to lift and be. I wasn't lifting as heavy as I was because it honestly, I mean, I squatted 500 pounds for 3 reps, bench 365, and clean 365. Like I had enough of putting big weight on my body. Right, I was worn down, so it was really
Holy
just
shit.
kind of lifting light and going from there into cardio. So incline treadmill with YouTube videos up and running every morning for a while. That was kind of my staple for a year or two.
Nice. So I was I did keto for like a week because I was in college at the time. I didn't have much options. It's like the dining hall. So there's just cookies and a bunch of fried foods and all this other stuff. And I ended up eating like macadamia nuts, mayonnaise, and other shit. Like it just didn't work at the time for the given situation that I was in. So before that, I was doing the flexible dieting, the IIFYM, tracking macros. And recently I've kind of talked shit about that, even though it was a huge, like, I wouldn't be where I am now without actually learning those fundamentals. But I think IIFYM specifically skews the fundamentals where it's like, hey, you can still kind of eat whatever you want. So my philosophy behind all of this fitness and health stuff has evolved this year like crazy. But how has yours evolved? What does it look like now, and why?
So how it's evolved is really over the last three. So I graduated in 2018. So it's been about 4 years, or coming up on 3.5. But I stopped playing football in December of 2017. So right about 4 years right now. It evolved from first just kind of losing and being like halfway on, halfway off with keto. But I got down to about, it really came in waves. I went 280 to 240, 240 to 210, 210 to where I am now, which is about 185, 190, pretty sustainably. And I, like you, it's evolved over time because my goals have changed and been different. And, there were some where I was still lifting and trying to get strong. Then I said, I'm going to get leaner. And right now, the goal is to be energized throughout the day to work very hard on whatever it is I'm doing.
Mm.
Like my number one optimization is I can spend from 6 to 7 a.m. to 2 or 3 p.m. focused work with very little breaks and do that every single day if I wanted to or needed to. So if I can put in 6 to 7 hours of pretty good focused work, like I think everything else is based around that. Now I can stack with what are my other goals, and we've created this kind of fitness group chat that we're just jamming all this stuff. And right now I want just a holistic full stack approach to health. So I want to be able to run. I want to be able to lift. I want to be relatively lean most of the time. I want to be flexible, energized, and then the one I've recently been doing is boxing, trying to have some kind of martial art sport with it. So it's really, I want to be able to do anything all the time for a long time, right? That to me is like the path of improving health and fitness is only going to get more important. And so why not just dive fully into it right now? So I do a little bit of everything, and it's the number one. I've changed over the last 4 years to make it the foundation and recognize that it is the foundation for every other thing I want to do. When I am humming on all cylinders health wise, I feel unstoppable, right? But when the second you put it secondary to something, you lose that compounding of, wow, I only have to sleep 6.5 hours because I'm sleeping very well and very deep, and I'm optimizing around that, and I'm up at 4:30, like getting after it and excited about what I'm working on. That to me is like, I just want to get up and scream from the mountaintop, like, God, take this stuff seriously, because when you feel this way, life is as good as it gets.
Yeah. I've experienced the same thing recently, and I want to personally thank you for kind of solidifying running in my routine, because I was dabbling with it. And of course, as I was cutting down, I was incorporating more and more cardio just as it goes. And I've fallen in love with running, man. Like it's fun. I'm starting to I'm testing right now. It's still like a testing experimentation period, but I think I'm going to stick to like 4 or 5 days running, but then the other mornings have some form of like yoga session in my room, because I do enjoy the yoga flexibility as well. And I've been considering Muay Thai boxing. I was supposed to go on Saturday, but they were closed, which is weird, even though their website didn't say they were closed. So either way, I completely agree, because I used to only lift weights and go on walks, and then I would run in the afternoons. And then you said how you would wake up and run first thing in the morning, and it would be like a primer for focused work. And I'm the same exact way. Everything's kind of, it's like I have my certain blocks. I have the gym in the afternoon, I have my work in the morning. Everything else goes around that in an attempt to amplify it. And so I started getting up first thing, run, and it's cold out right now, so it's a battle, right? It's like, if I can do this, I can do fucking anything. And I would run, came back the first day of trying it, and yeah, focus work was like seamless. I was awake, ready to go, a tiny bit tired, which I feel like helped with the focus. So I'm enjoying that quite a bit, and love the whole hybrid athleticism, holistic health type deal, because when you start incorporating these things too, other things naturally start to fall out of your life, like the other bad habits that you may not be aware of. It's like, oh, like I have this to focus on now, so this, like, I'm aware of this, and this needs to go if I actually want to take this seriously. So that's one hidden benefit of doing all of this too. One question for you, and I know we have the whoop, but are you ever, does the thought of overtraining cross your mind?
So I guess two things. One, just double clicking on the running real quick. I've found that the reason I picked it up in the last 8 to 9 weeks is my entire life I hated it, and I basically made up every excuse underneath the sun to say, oh, I can just lift and go on walks. I don't need to run. Running's bad for your joints, whatever. And I kind of dug into that one morning and was like, why am I just justifying it? Like, is this a signal that I should lean into something? I've been spending my whole life justifying why I shouldn't. Why don't I just give it a try? And so I started and was like, but 2 weeks into it, I completely reframed my mind on it. It was, I recognized that not every run had to suck. That was a very 0 to 1 moment for me. My entire life, it was, I think I was a little bit like mini traumatized from being the chubby kid trying to run a mile and not being able to qualify for like different things. And so in my head, I was like, running, that's dumb. I'll never have to do that. Like, in college, runs sucked. I was 280 pounds. Like, this is the last thing I want to do. But I agree. It has been the reason I really started doing it in the morning was I didn't like the kind of fragility that I was feeling with lifting every single morning, because if I was traveling, then I'd be like, oh my gosh, like I'm not able to do my lift in the morning. It's going to throw my whole day off. But so I wanted to come up with like a first hour of the day routine that I could do at any place on earth. And for me, that's become getting all my thoughts out, handwritten journaling, 15 to 20 minutes of that, and then running. And I can do that anywhere. I've done it, being here or New York, or I was in a couple other places, and that sustainability has been really big for me. So that's just on the running side. If you're considering it, I think the keystone habit of running every morning, it just, it's a lot of fun. I'm enjoying it. So on the overtraining side, I don't think about it too much, because running, I'm not doing very much volume. My daily runs are a total volume of at most 2 miles most days, with 1 day a week where I go for 45 minutes to an hour. But so maybe I'll cross that bridge when I get there. But until like my Whoop, I'm still recovering pretty well. I think I'd rather overtrain and then have to back off. It's like these people. One of my favorite things to like read is people who start lifting weights are like, oh, but I don't want to look like a bodybuilder. I'm like, do you know how many lifts you're going to have to do to get to there? Like you're I think Alex Hormozy said, stop trying to solve problems that you don't yet have. Right. So it's like preparing for things that once you get there, they'd actually be very easy to solve. But if you spend any time trying to kind of prepare for them right now, maybe not. So on the overtraining side, no. But if I wake up one morning and my Whoop's at like 0%, it's like, dude, you're getting crushed, then I'd probably find a way to back off.
That makes sense. I'm still learning how to read the Whoop, because I don't really understand it. I woke up the first like few days with it in the yellow, and I'm like, oh shit, I'm not doing this correctly. I thought it was supposed to be in the green like every single day. But it's the whole running thing has destroyed a lot of my limiting beliefs on it, like just doing it, because I was the same way. It's like, oh, it's bad for my joints. Why would I run when I can just walk on the treadmill at the gym, like an incline treadmill? It's kind of comfortable. But that's the thing, like, and why I want to incorporate yoga as well in the mornings is because it is anti-fragile. Like, I can wake up and do it in bed if I have to, or just roll out of bed and do it on the floor. But that's the thing, man. I really like the holistic approach to this. So thank you for that. But I want to transition, and I'll start it off with this question, because I think it will spark thoughts. Why writing?
Because there's just no other way to recognize how little you know. That is, for me, been the biggest unlock with writing. And I will say my writing comes in really two ways. It's one, journaling, and one, writing to share an idea. And in both of those, all you're doing is taking what you think is in your head is some kind of truth and putting it out onto paper where you can look at it. So whether that's a journal or whether that's a computer screen, doesn't really matter. Writing to me is the foundation for understanding. And without that, you end up just trying to do things in your head, and you have too many other things going on in your head to ever really isolate whatever it is you're trying to figure out. So writing for me has come, I mean, there's even way more benefits than just the thinking side of things that we can dig into with doing things online and sharing serendipity, all that. But to me, it's to figure out, I say this all the time, I used to write only once I had something all the way figured out. But now I write to figure out that I don't know anything, right? So the like pithy one-line tweet is, I used to write to show off what I know. Now I write to figure out what I don't. And so that's the biggest unlock for me with writing.
Damn, dude, you said that extremely well, because I've been on the same thing recently. When I first started on Twitter, it was just like, yeah, I'm going to tweet what I know. Like it's from my head to there, and that's it. That is completely it. So with just an example of the like one-liner tweet, it's great. That's a big idea, but the magic is found and more big ideas are sparked and full understanding is gained when you actually break that down. So for me now, when I have one of those big ideas, that thought that can be summed up in one little sentence and it's very impactful, I used to do this in Notion, but now I do it in Rome with my fancy little workflow, and I'll pop it in there and I'll just write about it. It's like, okay, what does this actually mean? And I break it down. I break down how it's applied to my life, personal experiences I've had with it. And then that just goes, and I'll end up with a page, just like an article pretty much based around that. But then that sparks like new big ideas, and you can see the connections and the synchronicities. And I really think that's where the magic happens. But how did you get into writing of all things?
It actually jibes with this kind of self-improvement journey-ish that I've been on. And I started writing online January 2020. I came into the year tired of listening to all these books or podcasts, reading all these books about whatever it is, and taking notes, but really not taking action on what I was learning because I didn't have a good forcing function to actually put it into practice. So I was convincing myself that I was doing all this learning and reading and whatever, but the notes would end up kind of in a folder and not really get applied. So I started a weekly newsletter with all I was doing was sharing the links and kind of distilling, forcing me to sit down at the end of the week and say, what is it that I studied or learned or was interested in this week? And that within that first month, I felt just the power of sitting down, distilling your thoughts, sharing them with people, letting them poke holes in it. The serendipity of sharing things online that comes from, people paying attention to what you're doing, interested, like just the reason we're on this call right now is because we resonated with one another on Twitter because we shared similar things and talked about similar things. And like the power of writing and sharing your perspective, it immediately allows someone to say, I see the world similarly as them. We should be friends. We should connect. We should talk about this idea. We should explore this. And there's never been another way to do that in history without meeting someone and then telling them your whole life story, right? You basically have this ledger of the way you see the world out there for anyone to see, and they can anyone that it resonates with, boom, they have an immediate jumping off point for you. So that's a long-winded way of saying it, to me, became a way to distill my thoughts and then a way to attract people. Like one giant framework for me with the internet is it's democratized access to friendship, where if you maybe saw the world a little bit differently than your peers growing up, or you were interested in different things, for the longest time, it was you were kind of out of luck. Versus now the internet says you're going to very easily, for better or worse, find those same people who see the world the same way you do. And you can do that instantly with writing. And so that's just another reason it's so powerful.
So did you try anything else before writing, like in terms of marketable or monetizable skills?
Nothing directly, but I was a math and computer science major, so I could code and do differential equations and whatnot, which was, I guess, somehow monetizable. And that's what I do full time is stare at charts and numbers. So I didn't have a foundation of writing that I could lean on, so I really wanted to develop it because I despised it in college. I always just felt like it was unnecessary and didn't fully appreciate it, just like running.
So in terms of writing, would you consider this? I know you teach writing, so you may be a bit biased on this, but is writing something that you would recommend for all beginners looking to get into this space?
I think it's a foundation for every single thing you're going to do in this space, which is you're going to learn how to communicate your value, right? So let's zoom it out and talk about the one-person business idea that you talk about a lot, right? What are you going to do as a one-person business? One, you're going to figure out what it is you can teach other people. or what it is you can do for other people. So that's the value you're providing. To provide that value, you're going to have to write in some way, whether or not it's actually writing the way you deliver it, like via the written word, or it's a video, or it's a podcast, or it's whatever. Writing is going to be the foundation of it. So that's part one, is you're going to have to create value. Part two is going to be you're going to have to communicate value, right? So yes, you might do it on a sales call, but you're probably going to have a sales script, right? Writing is the foundation for every single business and personal growth endeavor that I think you could possibly undertake. And so, yes, I'm biased because I teach a course on writing, but I've felt the foundation with which you can do things, if you're able to write, it's everything, right? You can easily make a YouTube channel if you know how to write, because the script, you're going to write the script and then you'll figure out the easy part of going on camera, right? But the best person on camera in the world is going to struggle if they don't know what to say or how to say it, or, the psychology behind communicating value, all of that. So it's a mix of writing, copywriting, all of that goes into it.
I've realized this a lot recently because my introduction to writing that I didn't consider writing was Twitter, because I was doing like web design beforehand. Before I got into funnels, Twitter was what got me into funnels because it stressed the importance of writing, and that's the entire foundation of the funnel. So the other thing that I'll harp on again, because you talked about it earlier, is that it helps you connect the dots. Because I've tried YouTube, I tried a lot of visual platforms before Twitter, and when you're just trying to speak and articulate from the thoughts in your head, some people can do it well. I'll give it to them. They can do it very well. But for the average person and me, it was just impossible to produce on the level that other people are, simply because I didn't write out my thoughts and flesh them out and make the connections earlier, and possibly read off that script, or even just like go off of that foundation to do it. So that was a big realization for me, and it really teaches you it teaches you so much, man. It teaches you, whether you study this directly or not, human behavior, human nature, how to capture attention. It's like, if your writing isn't resonating with someone, if it's not getting engagement, although that metric can be kind of weird, if it isn't getting engagement, if it isn't sparking discussion, if you're not getting out what you want from your writing, it's usually because you aren't connecting with the other person. You aren't grabbing their attention. You aren't showing how you aren't relating to the pains of their life, or explaining the benefits of implementing the value you're trying to provide. So that's a huge thing, is just writing. Now, in terms of the newsletter, I did the same thing, and I still kind of do the same thing, and I've seen a lot of people do the same thing. So I want to get your opinion on this. When starting a newsletter, should people just go the route of learning and distilling their thoughts in their own words and starting there?
I think so, because it's so easy to get started, right? 95% of this is just getting over the fear of hitting publish on that very first edition, where you think that there's two things, right? First is that everyone who reads it's going to judge you in some way. And then the best part about my newsletter for the first 30 weeks was it took me 40 something weeks to get to like 300 something subscribe, like very small number. And you recognize how unimportant you are in the grand scheme of things, that no one on planet Earth, and still to this day, is refreshing their browser waiting for you to hit publish on something. So it's a nice way to keep your ego in check. I think just getting, like, you're going to build up this idea in your head of, oh, I need to write this newsletter this way. You just need to start publishing in them and commit to it for a year and figure it out as you go.
How did you power through that? Because for a lot of people, I mean, the common thing is to get demotivated, right? It's the whole, I was talking with Joey about this yesterday, but the James Clear idea, he named it, I think it's like the plateau of latent potential, where like you're doing something up until, as Jack Butcher put it in his visual, where it's like, this is pointless. And then the exponential progress occurs. So is it just a matter of persistence up until that point?
my framework for this is you need to commit to something long enough such that you could get the compounding benefits. So for me, that was, I'm going to write a newsletter every week for 52 weeks. Now, you also need to commit to something where the downside of it not going anywhere is still upside. So for me, that was, worst case for this 52 weeks, I write a newsletter every single week and I get to the end and I have no subscribers, right? What's the upside? I'm a clearer thinker because of it. I'm putting these into practice. I have a habit. I become the type of person that can commit to something for a year, right? All these things that were on their own good enough, right? So I didn't have to connect to this result. So I think where a lot of people get demotivated or burn out on something is they haven't connected it to some kind of benefit that is beyond any kind of external validation, right? So the byproduct of clear thinking and doing it consistently was I built an audience and we're here today because of that. But the only way I was able to on week 38, as I sat down on that Sunday night to write the email that, was going to 300 people with a 40% open rate, that most of them were like, oh, I can't believe he's still sending this, right? There's a lot of, but to me it was, I committed to something, I'm getting upside from it, and the rest is going to take care of itself.
I like how you have that fleshed out, because I haven't even thought back to it. Because my first thing was Twitter, where my whole thing was, I'm committing to this because I've tried so many other things, and if I don't make this work, I'm not going to make anything work. So it's like, if I don't post, in my mind, I was like, if I don't post every single day for eternity, I die. Like, metaphorically. But that's exactly what I did. It's like, you're kind of making that that deal with your future self, where it's like, I know what this can turn into. It's just a matter of intentional action today and getting there. And here's one thing, I don't know if other people already know this, but I was so iffy on the definition of intention for the longest time. And recently I learned that it comes from the Latin word of like intentionem or something, which literally means to stretch out. So you are stretching out towards something. So you're like, if you have a goal, you have a vision, you have some potential reality that you can stretch towards achieving with your actions today, then it becomes much more meaningful, and it's much easier and fulfilling to actually do those actions, because you're working towards something, and even the smallest progress is still progress. And I think that's what builds consistency for a lot of people, because with New Year's right around the corner, people may be thinking of getting into the gym or something else. But for the people that got into it just as a byproduct of being tired of where they're at in life right now, it's because they saw where they were at in life. They have that kind of anti-visualization. It's like, I don't want to end up here, so where do I want to end up? What's the flip side of that? And then the intentional action is kind of natural. It's like, I'm stretching towards this. I'm seeing progress. I am actually making the progress here, and then the dopamine from that keeps you going, the intrinsic motivation. So I really like that. And I want to talk about building in public a bit, because I don't talk about this too much. I'm not sure if you do, but I've never had this defined. So what is your definition of building in public?
Building in public to me is sharing some kind of vulnerability and authenticity with whatever it is you're building that creates a second resonance channel with people who are consuming whatever it is you're creating, right? So a great example of this is if you're a SaaS founder, right? You could talk all about what your SaaS does with your content, right? You're showing off new features, you're showing off new whatever, gizmos and gadgets with whatever it is you're building. But you can also talk about, oh, I am struggling with this, or this feature I thought about the wrong way. And so instead of, you basically create two audiences when you're doing that, when you're building in public, because you have people who are on the same journey as you, interested in building that SaaS, right? And then you also have people who that SaaS is going to be useful to. And those are really two completely different groups of people oftentimes. But you're kind of magnifying your audience reach by communicating some kind of value to people who want to do what you're doing and who want to use what you're creating. And I think it just creates it's like a second stream of income in a sense, right? I'm going to build friendships along the way. I'm going to easily meet other people who are doing things that I'm doing while also building my product. And that doesn't have to just be SaaS. That's just an example. But I think it's a way of aligning your incentives to share your journey, because you're going to meet other people and all that.
I like that. I guess we all build in public, but you mentioned something there that I've been struggling to articulate for a long time, because I understand the value in it just because I have a larger audience. But in my community, there's two groups of people, right? There's the ones that want to freelance with some form of marketable skill. And then there's those that want to, or have the potential of coaching, right? And I'm trying to understand niching down while building an audience, because there's the whole niche of one, which I feel like comes through authenticity and writing and forming those connections that other people couldn't make, and building your knowledge and skill set to a point where it's irreplaceable and having enough experience. But then there's the niche of there's the advice of you need to niche down. So if you're selling a freelance service and you're getting very specific, so someone like Cold Email Wizard does this very well, but in general, someone selling a service, they're usually pushed towards, hey, you need to get very specific on who you're selling to and who and how you're packaging up your offer. And they're told that their brand should reflect that, kind of like a LinkedIn profile, where it's like, I help X do Y without Z, and it's mainly for lead generation. But how can one do that, get that point across, while still building a larger audience at scale? Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, well, so let's look at that example, right? If you are I do copywriting for course creators, right? That's a pretty specific skill set. Now, in your Twitter bio, that would be something like, that's what I do. I help course creators write better emails so they can make more sales, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. So that's your main value proposition, but you're also have a byproduct audience of other email copywriters interested in doing similar things, right? So you have general audiences and niche audiences. We talk about this in Chip 30. It's my niche audience is going to be, well, here's the thing, right? What are you creating content for in that world? Are you creating content for lead generation, to show people that I'm the best emailer for course creators? Or are you selling a course on how to write effective emails, right? There's kind of different things, but you can do both. So there it is right there. I'm going to get really good at writing course creator emails, and that I'm going to sell that skill set, but I'm also going to share the way I think about emails in general that you can apply to any skill set. And then I'm going to teach you how you can do that and apply it to whatever your niche is, right? So you want to, especially on a service-based, get as specific as possible, but then zoom out and say, how can I add a layer of the onion back to get this to a more general skill when you're offering any kind of audience building?
Beautiful. the way that I've put that is like I like to make the differentiation from like brand and marketing in relation to what you're selling, from brand and sales, because brand to me has evolved over time. I started as a web design guy, but I initially went in with a web design product because I had already freelanced for so long. So that, like, this whole discussion is kind of foreign to me, although I've kind of fleshed it out over time myself. But I like to think of the brand as like a broad catch of people that have like-minded interests as you. And then from there, you can get very specific with who you are selling to, because they are going to compose some part of your audience because they have the same problems you're talking about. They have a lot of similarities, and you're naturally going to attract them because your expertise is related to what they do. And then when the time comes, I feel like this is one of the main holdups, is that it's short term versus long term thinking, because they want to get those clients, but then they aren't thinking of the long term leverage that they're building with an audience, right? Because if the only thing they wanted was clients right now, you could go to LinkedIn. Like, you wouldn't be worried about building an audience, right? It would be mostly like DMs and possibly paying other people for promotions and getting on their page because they have the audience you want, et cetera, et cetera. So I like how you put it, and I don't know. There's a lot of different moving pieces there, and I think that's the reason that Ship 30 and my community and other things exist, is because it's impossible to package up into one podcast. But aside from that, you mentioned in your bio the word digital leverage. Now, when I started out, I had no idea what the word leverage meant, but now I do. But I want to understand your definition of digital leverage.
Digital leverage is the idea that you can have an army of employees spread out across the internet working for you for free 24/7 all the time, and none of them are humans. And so the way I think about it is, the landing page for Ship 30 right now is an employee whose full-time job is to tell people about the course and sell them on it. I have an email course that is working 24/7, 365 to deliver some kind of value. Every single one of those things used to take a human. Like, that is the unlock, right? It's kind of wild to think about, but think about passing out flyers for something you were selling back in the day. Now anyone, billions of people can see it. So digital leverage is just this idea that robots can work for you for free forever, and you should spend your time hiring and training them. So I like to think at any given moment, I'm training an employee in some way. When I'm writing a Twitter thread, that's a new employee. That's going to live forever working for me for the rest of eternity for free, right? That is my definition of digital leverage. And it's, the second you think you've understood how powerful it is, you're still not thinking powerful enough, right? Because every single thing that used to get done by a human is now done by software or a robot for low cost forever.
Right. I like how you put that. And that's one reason I'm getting into YouTube now, after trying so many times before, but coming from a much better mindset going into it, is because to me, YouTube is like, those videos live on. I still refer to videos from way back then, and that's the next step for me. But another thing out of multiple that I've asked you about, things that I've been juggling in my head, and I should really write about this, and I have written about this sometimes, but we both have products and we both promote the idea of starting this stuff, of publishing online, of becoming that niche of one, of starting a personal brand, all of this fun stuff in the online space. How many people can do this? That's probably a bad way of putting the question, but do you see the world shifting this way, like from like corporations and other big things to singular persons or smaller brands?
100%. The world is, if you haven't read the book, The Sovereign Individual, you need to pick up a copy because it definitely changed the way I see things. And we're trending in that direction, right? You're already seeing little snippets of it, right? With the way the media works, and you're seeing individuals. Like, who would you rather, if you were selling a product, have share something? Fox News or Logan Paul, right? Logan Paul tweeting something out versus Fox News having a commercial. It's very easy that the power is going to accrue to the individuals. And so you take that to its logical conclusion. We're operating as a world of individuals, that the friction that has required cooperation in the past gets melted away, where it's very easy. Like, I have a bounty for a job that needs to get done. I can put that out there and very seamlessly someone picks it up, right? I really think you are going to have a non-commodity skill set through some level of specificity or otherwise you're going to work for Amazon. I think Jack Butcher tweeted it. We're all either artists or working for Amazon in 50 years. And artists are not necessarily art in the sense, but more something that you can't teach a computer to do very easily with any kind of level of uniqueness, right? So anything, if you're saying the same things as other people, you're going to get replaced, which is why you have to bring in this whole game your story, your background, your hyper-specific knowledge, all that. But it's 100% going that way. To your original question, though, how many people can do it? Well, how many people can Amazon employ? Because that's the other option, right? You're either going to accept that I need to do something on my own as an individual, or I've just become a cog in kind of a long-term machine.
That was really good. Because as I mentioned, I'm writing on both like the whole self-belief stuff that we talked about earlier, but also like becoming irreplaceable and making that distinction between becoming valuable and becoming irreplaceable. Because becoming valuable at this point in time is becoming a commodity, which is great. And it's like you have to get to that level first. You have to learn the skills necessary to earn some form of money, whether it's online or not. But then taking that next step from a valuable online commodity who may be making a full-time living to becoming irreplaceable and having the knowledge or wisdom to be like an artist and apply your specific skill set to the right situation within someone's business or your own business, or just being able to artfully navigate the online space. That's what's going and adapt. That's what's going to really set you apart. And there's levels to it as well. But that's the main thing. And this brings us to the topic of what we were kind of talking about earlier in the group chat of the potential. Like the potential of all of this, and how us at such a young age are kind of breaking through these preset beliefs of what can happen. Because to me, it comes back to the conventional path of like, you go to school, you get a degree, you get a job, but then what's next? It stops there, right? You may be able to increase your income by a certain amount, but that's my problem. That's the problem that I had with it. And it's like, okay, yeah, I got to go and pursue something else. And right now use this job to kind of fund that and then eventually break out. So what are your, it's so hard to talk about this because a lot of the time it's like unbelievable, where I saw someone on Twitter a while ago that really challenged my beliefs because they posted that they hit their first 100K month. And I'm like, dude, I wanted to make 100K a year like 2 years ago. And it's kind of insane. So how I want to approach this from a level of just helping people believe, because I really do think that is the first step for them to realize that they can actually act on this. So do you have a way of putting this into words that will help people kind of bust those limiting beliefs that are in their head about earning more than what they are told they can earn?
100%. I have a framework for this called the marathon pacer. And I don't know who published this study. Maybe I'll find it. But going into a marathon, you have pacers running along with big signs on their back that say a certain time, right? A certain split, a certain, 8 minutes a mile, or break a 4 hour marathon, something like that. And what they did was they asked people going into the marathon, what's your goal? What pacer are you going to keep up with? And everyone wrote it down. They said, my goal, I've been training for a long time for an 8-minute mile marathon. I'm going to do this, that, and the other thing. And what they did was they took those pacers and they sped them up by 10 seconds a mile, something like that, which over the course of a marathon comes out to a pretty good amount, right? 10, 15 minutes if you do a good job on it. Or if you follow a 7:45 pacer versus an 8-minute pacer. And I think something like 95% of people ended up achieving running faster than they were just because the pacer they were following that they thought was running at the time that they were supposed to run ended up running faster, right? So the 8-minute pacer going at 7:45, they're like, oh, I'm running 8 minutes. I feel fine. And then they get to the end. They're like, holy shit, I just ran a 7:45 marathon. So my framework for this is finding out what your marathon pacer is right now. Who are you looking at? Who are you comparing yourself to? Who are you kind of thinking is setting the bar for you? And do you need, is that the right marathon pacer for you? And once you recognize that you could jump ahead to the 6-minute one and see what happens, maybe you get your ass kicked trying to go that hard, but it's just checking, who is setting the pace for me right now? Am I setting the pace? Is someone else setting the pace? And what can I do about that? How can I reflect on, is that the right pace? Am I going fast enough? Could I really, Peter Thiel's got the great, if I wanted to achieve my 10-year goals in 6 months, what would I do, right? What if every time you set a goal, you set it 10 times bigger? How would it change? Not necessarily that you have to set that goal and do that, but how would it just totally unlock the way you were thinking, right? If your goal is to bench 225 and it was, I got to do 315 or set a world record, how would that change things? So my thought on that is recognize where your marathon pacer is. How could you try to speed up and test whether you could keep up with that one in front of you? Because I guarantee the more often you try to keep up with someone a little bit faster than you think you can handle, you're going to surprise yourself.
I really like that, man. That was really well said. And I'm kind of the same mind where I love this analogy. Where have you ever noticed a color and then you start seeing that color everywhere, right? It's a part of the unknown. You're not aware of it until you become aware of it, and then you just see it everywhere. So if you intentionally push yourself into that next level where you may not believe you're supposed to be, you're eventually going to believe you're supposed to be there, because you're going to notice all of the things that you have to do to actually get to that level. And then when you're either back at your current level or when you're intentionally stretching to get to that level, you're going to notice every little thing that came from putting yourself out there or having that time restriction, or as you were talking about. I just love how you put that, man. That was really good. But the last thing I want to talk about is your creative workflow, because I'm just curious about that. I'm curious about when you plan out a tweet or an article or something else, how does that flow?
My flow right now, it's definitely, I think it looks cleaner than it is. Something I think despite having a very disorganized system, kind of am able to do, because I keep it relatively simple, right? Ideas come to me throughout the week. I capture them all everywhere. So I think the fundamental thing is being able to capture ideas wherever they are, get them out of your head. So I have, you can't see it, but I have a Post-it note next to my bed, a whiteboard in the shower, a whiteboard over here, a whiteboard when I'm working out. quick capture on my phone, like all these inboxes that I can just capture ideas. Then I very specifically try to find golden nuggets when I'm listening to things, not take big long notes on whatever it is, but I go into everything, every interaction, every conversation, every podcast episode, looking for just one thing that I think I could apply to what I'm doing. And I call those golden nuggets. And so I'll save those golden nuggets throughout the week. And then at the end of the week, I kind of just process them and say, okay, this one's interesting. How can everything always starts as a tweet, where if I try to distill whatever that idea is and I throw it out into the world and I get market validation on every single thing that I end up writing. And we call this in Ship 30 the lean writing approach, whereas every single long form article, blog post, book is going to start as something very short form right now. And there's no reason not to, because you can have airtight feedback loops on short form content. And then if that resonates, then you can build it out, right? Every tweet could eventually become a full-blown course or a full-blown mastermind. But it all starts with that single idea. So that is really the foundation of my workflow. And then every once in a while, maybe at the end of the week, every couple of weeks, I kind of just flip through and think, what is it that I'm saying that's resonating with people? How can I double down on those? How can I explore those ideas a little bit deeper? And then all of that comes with the lens of having a creative forcing function for different types of content, right? So I write tweets, and then I also write atomic essays, which are 250 word, kind of the foundation of Ship 30. For anything that I want to flesh out a little bit more, if those resonate, then I might write a thread on it, or I might write a pillar blog post on it, or I'll do a podcast episode on it. So having different mechanisms for different levels of the creative kind of journey. And then really the foundation of it is just long walks in the morning. After my runs, I usually go for a walk with or without my phone, usually with my phone, because I find that annoyingly when I go without it, I really want to capture something and then I'm like sprinting home to try to get that idea out of my head because I'm going to forget it. And then really it's blocking off deep time to do that writing. So I try to write every single day. Sometimes everything, life gets in the way, etc. But I try to have at least 60 minutes of fleshing out ideas in the morning. And then just always kind of figuring out what works, doubling down on what's working, different formats, all that. But I think my creative workflow could be a lot better, and it's something I'm definitely working on into the new year.
Nice. Mine's very similar. The idea capturing is absolutely necessary. I found that out recently. Like, I remember I posted a tweet one time. It was just a picture of me on like my morning walk, and someone was like, "Don't bring your phone on your morning walk." And I'm like, "Yeah." Like, I thought about it for a bit. I'm like, "There's some merit to that, but I would be missing out on so much." Like, that's the main reason I bring my phone now, is just like something will pop into my head and I have to mark it down. And I keep it in what's called a queue. So when I'm listening to an audiobook or reading or something else, it's the same thing. You're noticing what like creates that spark in your head, and I call them big ideas as opposed to golden nuggets. Same thing, but I write it down in what I call the queue in my notes, and then I have 3 days of the week right now that are spent for research. I call it research or like idea generation or fleshing out the thoughts. And then the other 4 days are for writing and actually producing. And so those 3 days, I copy and paste everything into the queue. So I have a long queue of ideas. And then I just slowly start to like write notes on the ones that stick out to me. And then I can connect them all. And this works especially well in Rome because everything's connected. So it's like I just end up with 3 big ideas, a ton of notes on those, and how they connect with other ideas. So if I write something on curiosity per se, and then I have another big idea on what's one thing, like free thinking, so questioning, and how curiosity and questioning go into the same thing, and then I can mesh those together into some kind of fusion idea for a longer form podcast or like an article or even now a YouTube video. Like, I'm really trying to nail this down to step up the YouTube production. But I'd love to talk about this more like after. So me and you will talk about all of this, because the creative workflow is one of the most powerful things for this, because that's what helps you stand out, right? It's like how creativity, it's how can you mesh these ideas together? How can you formulate the idea in the most impactful way? And I really like what you're doing, because I don't know if there's a framework for this, but you create frameworks out of everything, right? To help distill and make your ideas understandable. And people tie those ideas to you. Like that's how you build even more leverage, is like word of mouth marketing. It's like, oh, this thing really made sense to me. This helped me organize one area of my life. Homage to Dickie Bush. And then it just spreads. It's like a 1% better every day. James Clear. That's the first thing that comes to mind. And things like that. So that's one hidden gem that I don't feel like people talk about enough, is like creating, like organizing your own way of thinking and how it made sense to you, and refining that over time so it makes sense to other people. And then you're slowly just building like this word of mouth marketing empire for yourself and your ideas, but at the same time it's super valuable and it's helping everyone. So it's just win-win.
Yeah, I mean, talk about digital leverage, which is
Yeah.
your ideas spreading without you working for them forever, right? So if you're able to say, we call it naming and claiming in Ship 30. So it's you name and claim your framework. You could also do that with problems and solutions. So if you can clearly give a name to a problem and start to have people say, oh, I feel that problem. It's not writer's block, it's writer's confusion or whatever it is. They'll resonate that problem with you and the solution with you as well, which is a whole nother level of power.
That's fire. I'm gonna have to join Ship 30. I'll join Ship 30 this January. I'll get in there.
There we go.
I'll start learning, refine my writing, because it could definitely use some work. But Dickie, I appreciate you coming on, man. That was a banger episode, and I'm sure we'll be doing more, because as we dive deeper and as we connect further with the whole fitness, writing, creative workflow, literally life as a whole for us right now, we're definitely going to have more things to talk about. So for this one, that is it. Where can people find you? And what can people, I still don't have like a way of saying this. I need to create my own framework, but where can people find you and what can people buy from you?
Yeah, if you want to follow me, I spend too much time on Twitter. That's at Dickie Bush, DickieBush. If you want to start writing online, we have a 13,000 word free ultimate guide and email course you can download. If you go to startwritingonline.com, you can download that there. If you want to join Ship 30, cohort starts January 3rd, so kickstart the new year, writing every day for 30 days. We'll teach you a lot, build a foundation for you. My DMs are open, so that's ship30for30.com. And that's it. My DMs are always open if you want to jam on this stuff. Appreciate you listening. Hope you found it valuable.
Nice. Appreciate it, man. Listeners, we will see you in the next one.
Boom.
Thank you so much for listening to that episode of the Modern Mastery podcast. I have a few favors to ask you. For a whopping $0, you can support this podcast by following, rating, and subscribing on whichever platform you are listening on. For an additional $0, you can share this podcast and tag us at Modern Mastery on Twitter or at Modern Mastery HQ on Instagram. This helps the Modern Mastery community grow and allows me to bring you top-tier guests to fuel your hunger for wisdom. It costs $0, but it does cost you your time, and we understand how valuable that can be. Lastly, if you are trying to build a one-person business as a content creator, coach, freelancer, digital product creator, or online educator, consider joining Modern Mastery HQ that has hundreds of proven processes, strategies, and systems that you can copy and paste into your life and business to become a highly paid, free, and fulfilled individual. Go to join.modernmastery.co/podcast to get your first month for $5 and gain instant access to 4 beginner legacy courses, hundreds of trainings and strategies, and a community of growth-minded individuals, because quite frankly, your friends and family just don't understand this kind of stuff. With that,
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Modern Mastery Podcast, and I'll see you in the next one.